Hello everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to do a little bit of a different video. This is going to be one of the Tuesday videos that hasn't appeared for quite some time. But I wanted to take a little bit of time and give you guys an update on the channel, some things that are going to be coming down the pipeline, some changes that I'm going to make, and so forth. So the first thing you've probably noticed is my hair. For any of you who have not seen my Twitter post or the post on my Discord server, I cut my hair some weeks back, and I donated it. So I no longer have my long hair. I've gotten used to it now. It's much lighter. It's awesome. So there's that. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is probably one of the most important changes coming to the channel. So about a month ago, one of you had posted, and I don't recall who exactly posted this, but they posted that the channel had sort of lost its magic, so to speak, because I wasn't really doing the live coding thing anymore. I wasn't doing really live debugging sessions because my thought processes weren't always getting exposed in terms of why I was doing things as I was doing them, because I'd sort of switched and tried this format of heavily edited, shorter, more concise videos. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this series, I was going to try a bunch of things on the channel. And part of trying things to see what works is sometimes you have stuff that doesn't work. And I think I have actually been kind of feeling the same way for quite some time. I wanted to give this an honest try, give the new format an honest try, but I honestly felt that the new format isn't all that great either. I think it loses a lot of that magic that the original series and other series on this channel has had. And so, having thought about this, I put up a post on the community page of the channel a couple weeks back, and I asked you guys what you thought of the different formats and basically what you would prefer to see. And the results weren't completely surprising. So I put up 5 different options, basically ranging from full-on live coding to what we're doing now, which is, sort of heavily edited, very short, concise videos, and then even to something more extreme than that, which would be just devlogs. Instead of showing the development or showing the code at all, just doing a devlog. And like I said, the results weren't all that surprising. So I'm actually looking at them here on the screen, and it looks like 22% of you guys said that you want complete live coding, which again isn't really too surprising. So that would be me showing all debugging, all errors that I run into, regardless of how long it actually takes me to get through that. So that would be no editing. 30% of you guys said semi-live edited, which would be cutting sort of long debug sessions or errors out, so that you don't have maybe 20 or 30 minutes or something that gets stuck on showing on the screen, but showing everything else. So it's very, very light editing at that point. And then 37% of you said basically copy-pasting blocks of code, high-level explanations, and a sort of medium amount of editing is what you wanted to see. And as far as the rest, the format that we're doing now with pre-existing diffs, which would be, just basically looking at code that's already perfectly working, no live coding, no live debugging, and a high amount of editing. Only 7% of you guys said that you prefer that format. So the last one, of course, which would be the devlog format, which is just showing features and add-ons with very little code up on the screen whatsoever, if none, that only got 4% of the votes. So like I said, I'm not completely surprised at the results of this vote. And in fact, I also posted a vote up on or a poll rather, up on the Discord server, and the results looked almost exactly the same. So I didn't have as many votes over there, but the results were pretty much on par with what we have here. So this means that I am going to be changing up the format again, because the reason that I went this way was to try and reduce the amount of time I spent editing by trying to make everything shorter and more concise. However, I think it's gone too far in the extreme, and I agree with you guys on that, and so I'm going to be making an adjustment. So since the results were sort of heavily weighted right towards the middle and more towards live coding, with cutting sort of debug sessions out and also a little bit of copy and paste, I think I'm going to go with a hybrid approach of those three, because that is where most of you guys are actually talking about. So what does that mean? That means I am going to be doing some live coding once again on the series, where I'm coding on the screen. But there are going to be sections that I will sort of copy pasta in, and those will be sections of things that aren't really relevant or don't really need tons of review or things that we've done before. For example, if we are trying to obtain a new ID for something in one of our systems, something that we've seen a dozen times on the channel, that's probably something an example of something that I would copy and paste. But other than that, I'm going to try and really stay away from too much copy and paste, and I'll try to live code it. And anything that is going to wind up making it take a lot more time, it is what it is, And the other thing about this that I think I'm going to switch up is, since the videos are going to be longer, that would mean that I have more content to go through and edit and review. And so I'm basically not going to be doing that. I'm not going to heavily edit it. I'm going to leave all my speech mistakes in there and all that stuff. Because the videos are going to be longer, it's just going to be too much of a time sink for me to edit all of that. So most of what you're going to get on the channel now is going to be pretty much completely unedited. The only thing that I'm going to edit out is if I have to get up and walk away for something, or something like that. Or if I get stuck debugging something and I just sort of go round and round in circles for 20 minutes or something like that, I'll try and trim that down a little bit. But other than that, I'm not going to be heavily editing this stuff at all. So that is the direction that we're going to go in, and we're going to see if that works and what you guys think of that. And if we need to make an adjustment again in the future, we can always do that. So I'm open to that. Like I said, this is also a little bit of an experimenting / learning journey for me, making this series as we go along. So I'm definitely not opposed to change. I really appreciate you guys' feedback, and I will be listening to that, and I hear you guys, and I will be making adjustments. So with that, I have just a couple more things on my list here. So the next thing is I am going to be hosting a Ask Me Anything video at some point soon. And so the way that I'm going to set this up is on the Discord server, which if you haven't joined the Discord server yet, I highly recommend you do so. There is a link in the description below. The Discord server, I'm going to put up a special channel for Ask Me Anything. It's going to have slow mode enabled, so you can really only post once every few hours or something like that. But I would ask that you guys really only post one question. And what I'll do is I'll go through all those questions at the end of a time period. I'll probably leave it out there for a couple weeks before I actually do anything with it. And I'll take what I think are the most interesting questions, and I will answer those ones. So try to come up with something that is interesting, but also try to keep it related to the channel or things going on here. Within the channel, things I've discussed on videos like this one, or questions you have about the code base, or questions you have about me within reason. Just try to keep it related to the channel, right? If it's completely off topic or bonkers, I probably won't answer it. And also try to keep it somewhat respectful. Obviously, don't go asking, asinine questions, or bringing up things that are controversial, or anything like that, because I won't be answering any of that type of thing on the channel. So that is that. Ask Me Anything, I suppose, with a asterisk at the end there. But Yeah. So that is that. The last thing I have on here is I have plans for upcoming videos. So I will go ahead and give you guys a little bit of a preview of some of the features that are going to be coming up very soon. Things that we're going to be sort of crossing off of our roadmap, and things that we are going to be features that we're going to be adding. So some of the things that we're going to be doing is we're going to be continuing our mesh system. So there's a couple more videos actually going to be on that. We are going to we're going to do a little bit of work around our textures. So we're going to be splitting out our samplers to our texture maps. We're going to be creating writable textures, and that's textures that are set up to be writable in code. And then we're going to be setting up render targets and configurable render passes. We are going to have a camera system that gets implemented, so an official camera system. And that's probably going to be an iterative approach. So we're going to start off with a very basic camera system, and we're going to add features to that as we go. We're also going to implement our view system, which we talked about at the very beginning of the series in terms of how the renderer is actually configured. And this is sort of the precursor to maybe having some sort of render graph in the future. But basically, the renderer will be configured to work with what are called views. And those views will define what the pipelines look like for each individual thing. So you'll have several of different views that actually are responsible for different things. So an example of a view would be your world view that renders a scene or collection of scenes. And then you'll have a separate view to render the UI. You'll have a separate view to handle render targets that are specific in use. For example, we'll have one for shadow maps. So that will have a specific view. And all of these things will be responsible for setting up and configuring the resources that they need to actually function, and then feeding into the next view that actually needs to be executed. And so eventually we'll wind up with this sort of frame configuration that determines what views run in what order and what view feeds into what next view, and then that'll sort of go on. So I'm not going to go into any more detail on that. We'll cover that more in depth once we get to that. But that's another thing that's coming. We're also going to take a first pass at transparency. And I say first pass because transparency is actually a pretty complicated topic. And it can get pretty unwieldy pretty quickly. So there are lots of different ways to handle transparency. We're going to look at one way to handle transparency, at least in the beginning, and then we'll be handling various other methods of that in the future. We're also going to handle cube maps and skyboxes. So that's another thing that's coming. And then we are also going to take a look at starting to build a tool chain. So we are going to start building some utilities that are sort of outside the engine that prepare things for the engine. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to revamp our system for building shaders in that. So right now we've got some sort of scripts that are in place that aren't really all that maintainable because they're sort of very verbose and repeating a lot of code, things like that. It's just not ideal. And so we're going to start creating a tool chain to handle things like that externally, or maybe even during the build process. So there's that. We're also going to, a little bit later on, after that, we are going to take a look at threads and mutexes, both on Windows and Linux. And then we're going to use that to springboard us into a job system, a multi-threaded job system. With that, eventually we'll be making our renderer multi-threaded as well, although not right away. But it's sort of a precursor to that as well. And let's see, what else do we have in here? So the next things are really just going to be kind of using that job system to load various different types of assets. And then we're going to move on to creating some reusable parsers for things, because that's kind of an important thing that engines need to be able to do, is to parse files. So we're going to be touching on parsers. We're going to be touching on scenes at some point, which is going to use that parser that we're going to write. And that will allow us to load and unload various scenes. And then probably after that is I'm thinking starting the UI at that point. And that's going to be a pretty big rabbit hole that we're going to jump down for a while. And that's about as far out as I have planned, at least at the moment. So I do have a list of things that I have been working on and preparing to actually develop. So those are sort of what is coming in the engine next. And yeah, that's about it. So that really ties up this video. So thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate every single one of you. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. So that next video is going to drop on Friday as normal. So this was just a sort of little extra that I threw out there just because I haven't done one of these in a while. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already, consider subscribing because we are building a full game engine here from scratch, from the ground up. And we are using next to no libraries to do that. So if you guys are new to the channel and you haven't looked through the series yet, that is what we are doing. So if you haven't already, consider subscribing. Toss me a thumbs up on the video. That helps me out a lot as well. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, anything like that, please leave them below. And I will see you guys next time.